Welcome back, jesters, to the real Barenziah. Last time we started the final book of the story, and we made it to the middle part, and now we're going to finish it off. So, so they spent their days in courtship, walking, talking, singing, and laughing together, while the Empire's business was left to subordinates. "I'd like to see the staff," Barenziah said idly one day. "I only had a glimpse of it," he recalled. He frowned. "Nothing would give me greater pleasure, heart's delight, but that would be impossible. You don't trust me?" Barenziah pouted, but softened her lips when he leaned over for a kiss. "Nonsense, love. Of course I do. But it isn't here," he chuckled. "In fact, it isn't anywhere." He kissed her again, more passionately this time. "You're talking in riddles again. I want to see it. You couldn't have destroyed it." "Ah, you've gained in wisdom since last we met. You inspired my hunger for knowledge somewhat." She stood up. "The staff of chaos can't be destroyed, and it can't be removed from Tamriel, not without the direst consequences to the land itself." "Ah, you impress me, my love. All true. It is not destroyed, and it is not removed from Tamriel. And yet, as I said, it isn't anywhere. Can you solve the puzzle?" He pulled her to him, and she leaned into his embrace. "Here's a greater riddle still," he whispered. "How does one make one of two? That I can and will show you. Or that I can and will show you." Their bodies merged, limbs tangled together. Later, when they had drawn a bit apart, and he lay dozing, she thought sleepily, "One of two, two of one. Three of two, two of three. What cannot be destroyed or banished might be split apart, perhaps." She stood up, eyes blazing. She started to smile. The Nightingale kept a journal. He scribbled entries onto it every night after quick reports from underlings. It was locked in a bureau. The lock was a simple one. She had, after all, been a member of the Thieves' Guild in the past life. In another life, another Barenziah. One morning, Barenziah managed to sneak a quick look at it while he was occupied at the toilet. She discovered that the first piece of the Staff of Chaos was hidden in an ancient dwarvish mine called Fang Lair, although its location was given only in the vaguest of terms. The diary was crammed with jotted events in odd shorthand, and was very hard to decipher. All Tamriel, she thought, in his hands and mind, and more perhaps. And yet, for all his exterior charm, there was a cold emptiness where his heart should have been, a vacuum of which he was quite unaware, she thought. One could glimpse it now and then, when his eyes would go blank and hard, and yet, though he had a different concept of it, he yearned for happiness too, and contentment. Peasant dreams, Barenziah thought, and straw flashed before her eyes again, looking lost and sad. And then Theris, with a feline Khajiit smile, Tiber Septim, powerful and lonely. Symmachus, solid, stolid Symmachus, who did what ought to be done, quietly and efficiently. The Nightingale, a riddle and a certainty, both the darkness and the light. The Nightingale would rule all and more, and spread chaos in the name of order. Barenziah got reluctant leave from him to visit her children, who had yet to be told of their father's death, and of the Emperor's offer of protection. She finally did, and it wasn't easy. Morgaya clung to her for what seemed an era, sobbing wretchedly, while Helseth ran off into the garden to be alone, afterward refusing all her attempts to speak to him on the subject of his father, or even to let her hold him to her breast. Edward called on her while she was there. She told him what she had discovered so far, explaining that she must remain a while yet, and learn more as she could. The Nightingale teased her about her elderly admirer. He was quite aware of Edward's suspicion, but he wasn't the least bit perturbed. For no one took the old fool seriously. Barenziah even managed to arrange reconciliation of sorts between them. Edward publicly recanted his misgivings, and his old friend, the Emperor, forgave him. He was afterward invited to dine with them at least once a week. The children liked Edward, and Helseth, who disapproved of his mother's liaison with the Emperor, and consequently detested him. He had become surly and temperamental as days passed, and frequently quarreled with both his mother and her lover. Edward was not happy with the affair either. and the Nightingale took great delight at times in openly displaying his affection for Barenziah, just to nettle the old man. They could not marry, of course, for Uriel Septim was already married, at least not yet. The Nightingale had exiled the Empress shortly after taking the Emperor's palace, or different place, but had not dared harm her. She was given sanctuary by the temple of the one. It had been given out that she was suffering from ill health, and rumors had been circulated by the Nightingale's agents that she had mental problems. The Emperor's children had likewise been dispatched to various prisons all across Tamriel disguised as schools. Wow, that's messed up. She'll grow worse in time, Nightingale said carelessly, referring to the Empress and eyeing Barenziah's swollen breasts and swelling belly with satisfaction. As for the children, well, life is full of hazards, isn't it? We'll be married. Your child will be my true heir. He didn't want the child. Barenziah was sure of that. She was far less sure, however, of his feelings for her. They argued continually now, often violently, usually about Helseth, whom he wanted to send away to school in Somerset Isle, the province farthest from the imperial city. Barenziah made no effort to avoid these altercations. The Nightingale, after all, had no interest in a smooth, unruffled life, and besides, thoroughly enjoyed making up afterward. Occasionally, Barenziah would take the children and retreat to their old apartment, declaring she wanted no more to do with them. But he would always come to her to fetch her back, and she would always let herself be fetched back. It was ineffable, like the rising and setting of Tamriel's twin moons. She was 6 months pregnant before she finally deciphered the location of the last staff piece, an easy one, since every dark elf knew where the Mount of Dagother was. When she quarreled with the Nightingale, she simply left the city with Edwire and rode hard for High Rock and Wayrest. The Nightingale was furious, but there was little he could do. His assassins were rather inept, and he dared not leave his seat of power to pursue them in person. Nor could he openly declare war on Wayrest. He had no legitimate claim on her or her unborn child. True to form, the imperial city's nobility had disapproved of his liaison with Barenziah, as they had so many years ago of Tiber Septims, and were glad to see her go. Wayrest was equally distrustful of her, but Edwire was fanatically loved by his prosperous little state, and allowances were readily made for his eccentricities. Barenziah and Edwire were married a year after the birth of her son by the Nightingale. In spite of this unfortunate fact, Edwire doted on her and her children. She, in turn, did not love him, but she was fond of him, and that was something. It was nice to have someone, and Wayrest was a very good place for children to grow up. While they waited and bided their time and prayed for the champion's success in his mission, Barenziah could only hope that it wouldn't take very long. Whoever this unnamed champion was, she was a dark elf, and she had all the time in the world. All the time. But no more love left to give, and no more hatred left to burn. She had nothing left, nothing but pain and memories, and her children. She only wanted to raise her family and provide them a good life, and be left to live out what remained of hers. She had no doubt it was going to be a long life yet, and during it, she wanted peace and quiet and serenity, of her soul as well as her heart. Peasant dreams. That was what she wanted. That was what the real Barenziah wanted. That was what the real Barenziah was. Peasant dreams. Peasant dreams. Alright guys, thank you guys for watching this. I'm going to be starting a new book here soon. So hope y'all enjoyed. Catch y'all later, Jesters.